An English playwright in the 1830s captured a timeless truth when he wrote, "The pen is mightier than the sword." The pen records words, and words express ideas, and ideas can be so powerful that they can motivate us even against threats of force. Our Christian faith is built on some very profound ideas, ideas that might even be called dangerous. We'll explore that thought today on this episode, the first in a series that I'm calling Christianity's Dangerous Ideas. From the halls of Montezuma, Kansas, that is, to wherever you may be, this is the Sure and Secure Podcast, a ministry of Morningside Community Church, helping you become sure that Christianity is true and that your salvation is secure through Jesus Christ. I'm Pastor Tim Erickson. Thanks for listening today. There's an old cliche that says, ideas have consequences. That phrase has become cliche because it's absolutely true. The ideas that you hold to be true can have devastating real-life consequences. For example, the idea that a cow might be your grandmother reincarnated has contributed at times to food shortages in some parts of India. The idea that you've hit midlife sooner than you think you should might lead you to try and recapture your youth in ways that aren't entirely responsible. The idea that you are worthless and have no reason to live might tempt you to thoughts of self-harm. All of our actions are connected to some idea that's floating around in our minds. We may have a hard time expressing our ideas, and we may not even remember how we came to think that they're true, but nevertheless, they have a profound impact on us. In this episode, I'm starting a new series that I'm calling Christianity's Dangerous Ideas. We're going to think about the ideas that form the backbone of the Christian faith. And since these ideas are so central to our faith, they are also the ideas that make us different from other religions in the world and from other ways of thinking in general. That's the first reason why I'm calling these ideas dangerous. It's not that they make us dangerous people, but it's the fact that they make us different from others. And those differences have at times led to the persecution of Christians around the world. And they might leave you and I today facing insults or ridicule from people who hold different ideas. But these ideas are also dangerous to us on a very personal level, because they're dangerous to our sinful desires. When we understand what these ideas mean for us, we begin to see how ugly and twisted our sinful desires really are, and we can no longer be comfortable with them. So today, we're going to put our sinful desires on notice, that we're gunning for them as we renew our minds from the Word of God. We're going to begin this series today with a big idea that comes straight out of the first chapter of the Bible, and it's this: that the God who created all things is a living and thinking kind of being. Now, before you give me the Captain Obvious award, just hang with me for a little while. It's worth our time to think about this idea, even though it seems so basic. But it has some very profound implications for our lives. Now, just to quickly clarify that statement that I made, Christianity teaches that God is a living and thinking kind of being rather than something that is non-living or non-thinking, like the device that you're using to listen to this podcast right now. In other words, God is a personal being rather than some kind of a force. Think about the Force in Star Wars, for example. It's a powerful entity, but it's not the kind of thing that's alive. It's not the kind of thing that thinks on its own. Rather, it's just a force that can be used and mastered and even manipulated by other beings in order to serve their own ends, whether those ends be good or bad. But Christianity states that God is nothing like that. He is not a non-living, non-thinking being. He is a personal being. Nor is the idea of God just a metaphor for things that are actually entirely physical. Think of a metaphor like Mother Nature, for example. Sometimes we talk about Mother Nature doing this or Mother Nature doing that, but by and large, we're just talking about the physical world around us. Well, God certainly is not just a metaphor for things that happen in the physical world. He created the physical world, and He sustains it in being at every moment. Our first information about God comes, of course, from Genesis chapter 1, where we read the account of God creating the world. Now, notice how many details show us that God is a personal being, that in ways He is similar to you and me, and certainly more similar to us than to some kind of non-living, non-thinking being. First off, we see pretty early in the chapter, in verse 3, that He communicates. Genesis 1:3 states, "And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light." On each day of the creation week, God spoke, and something happened. We also read about God communicating with our first parents, Adam and Eve, in Genesis 1, verses 28 through 30. Those verses state, "God blessed them, and God said to them, 'Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and every creature that crawls on the earth.' God also said, 'Look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant on the surface of the entire earth, and every tree whose fruit contains seed. This will be food for you. For all the wild life of the earth, for every bird of the sky, and for every creature that crawls on the earth, everything having the breath of life in it. I have given every green plant for food.' And it was so." So we see very clearly that God is the kind of being who communicates, and He even initiates communication with other beings. A second detail we notice is that He assesses and evaluates things. In Genesis 1:4 it says, "And God saw that the light was good." At the end of each day of creation, God reflected on His work and evaluated it, and on each day He was satisfied with it. So He is a God who assesses and evaluates. A third detail we see is that He also plans and deliberates. With each day of creation, we see God carrying out a plan step by step. In verse 26, we read about God considering how to make human beings just right for the role that He had in mind for us. Genesis 1:26 says, "Then God said, 'Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. They will rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock, the whole earth, and the creatures that crawl on the earth.'" This process of planning also shows us another detail, that God has a will. God makes choices about a certain course of action, and He wills to bring that course of action about. A fifth detail we see is that He extends kindness to other beings. Genesis 1:22 says that God blessed the animals that He made, and verse 28 says that He blessed Adam and Eve. Now, the basic idea of blessing is giving someone a gift for their well-being and expressing goodwill toward them. Now, of course, that's something that only a living being can do. My computer has never expressed any goodwill toward me, except maybe for statements that it was programmed to say by the human beings who created it. So, from all of these details in just the first 2 pages of the Bible, we see that God is alive. He's thinking, He's making plans and choices, He's showing kindness to the beings that He has created. This idea is foundational to how we think about God, and it also makes our faith very different from other ways of thinking about the world. Let's consider just a few different ways of thinking about the world and the implications that their core ideas have. First off, let's consider atheism. Atheism teaches that there is no God who created the universe. It teaches that the universe is just all there is, and it doesn't have any of the traits that we just read about God in Genesis chapter 1. The Milky Way galaxy, for example, has never thought about you. It has no goodwill toward you. It has never planned or decided anything about you. It just exists. The sun and the moon don't plan anything or communicate with anyone. Planets don't evaluate anything or extend kindness. All of these non-living things just exist. And there is said to be no living being behind it all. So according to atheism, we live in a universe that is absolutely indifferent toward us. In fact, it's not even aware that we exist. It just happened to produce us through a great cosmic accident, we might say. Next, we could consider the great Eastern religions like Hinduism and Buddhism. Those are known as Eastern religions because of where they originated, in the Far East, places like India and China and Japan. Christianity holds a very different view of God than the major Eastern religions. Those religions teach that God isn't really different from the universe. God just is the universe. Everything that exists is said to be part of this ultimate divine being. And yet the ultimate being itself is not thought to be living or thinking or planning or deliberating. These religions have no concept of an almighty creator who is making plans and assessing things and evaluating things. They also don't believe that the ultimate divine spirit has any particular goodwill toward us. In Western nations, those Eastern religions have spawned what we often call New Age religions. These really are the stepchild of Eastern religions because they've basically taken their core ideas from Hinduism and Buddhism and have repackaged them in ways that sound more appealing to people in Western nations. Some of you who are older than me might remember actress Shirley MacLaine promoting various New Age ideas, like reincarnation in particular. For about the last 20 years or so, the most well-known promoter of New Age religion has actually been Oprah Winfrey. Now, I don't know if she fully understands everything that she's promoted, but she has practically become a prophetess for New Age teachers. She has long promoted people like Deepak Chopra, and more recently, she has thrown her support behind a New Age teacher like Eckhart Tolle. Tolle has written a book entitled The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment. And Oprah had this to say about the book, quote, "It's one of the most transformative books I've ever read. I keep a copy with me wherever I go, flipping through its highlighted pages time and time again," unquote. That's a pretty fascinating statement because it really reveals a religious devotion to this book and its teachings. I mean, that's how many of us treat the Bible, right? We keep it with us wherever we go. We maybe highlight things in it. We flip through it time and time again. And we do so because we have a certain religious reverence for it. Well, that's exactly the kind of attitude that Oprah is expressing about this book by a New Age teacher. Now, here's just one brief example of what Tolle teaches about the idea of God. Quote, "There can be no subject-object relationship here, no duality, no you and God," unquote. In other words, you and God are not different beings. You are actually just the same being, according to Tolle. You're both just simply part of the divine spirit that exists. And according to New Age teachers like Tolle, their whole idea of salvation, if they even call it that, is that we simply need to realize that we are not separated from God in any way. We are God. Now, you can probably see for yourself why the Christian idea is so dangerous to those other views, because if we are correct, then those other viewpoints just come crashing down. We proclaim against atheism that there really is a God who created all things and who sustains them in their being. We proclaim against the Eastern religions and the New Age religions that we are not one with this God in terms of being the same being. There is a difference, a distinction between the Creator and all of His creatures. These differences explain why we as Christians take so much heat from atheists, and why Christians are a persecuted minority in some parts of India, where Hinduism is the dominant faith. But these ideas aren't just dangerous to others, they are also dangerous to the old man that we as Christians are called to put off. If any man be in Christ, he is a new creation, we are told in 2 Corinthians 5:17. And yet the old man still wants to have its way. But this idea that God is a living and thinking being, different from us, separate from us, it is a great danger to our sinful expressions of pride. It is much more flattering to my ego for me to say that I am actually divine, that I don't have to serve some God who is over me and who created me, that I just need to understand that I myself am divine. Or on the other hand, it feels so empowering to say with atheism that there is no God, and we are each in full control of our own fate and destiny, that we are free to chart our own path as the greatest beings that evolution has ever produced, to say that I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul, as the poem Invictus declares. But the Christian idea of God really cuts us down to size and puts us in our place. And it wages war against the pride that is at the root of so many of our sins. It conducts this war by reminding us of several important lessons. First off, that I am not the greatest being in my own life. As a creature of God, I cannot claim mastery over my own life. Since God created me and sustains me, He has a claim upon me because I owe my very existence to Him. That fact really puts God in a league of His own above all mankind. As John the Baptist once said about Jesus, He ranks before me because He was before me. Now, Jesus was actually the younger cousin of John the Baptist, so that would be an odd statement for John to make if Jesus was nothing more than a human. But John believed that Jesus was also God, and for that reason, he put Jesus in a greater position than himself. I cannot put myself in first place in my own life because I am not the greatest being in my own life. I have to consider my responsibilities and duties to the one who created me. A second lesson we can take from this idea is that I am here because someone else wanted me here. I am not the unintended result of forces of nature operating over billions of years. I am here because God thought about me, planned for me to be here, and acted to make it happen. That means that I am alive on purpose, or we could say for a purpose. The focus of my life then should be on understanding God's purpose and living it out. If there were no God, then I would be free to follow whatever purpose in life that I thought was best. Or I could just declare that life has no purpose and give up altogether. But the fact that I am here on purpose means that I should seek to understand why God has me here and how I can fulfill the purpose that He has given to me as His child. A third lesson we learn from this idea is that I need the blessings of a God who is far greater than me. It is very humbling to admit that you are in a position of need. It requires you to acknowledge that you don't have the resources to accomplish a certain thing on your own. It is much more flattering to my ego for me to say, like the New Age teachers do, that I can literally change the world myself by simply getting in touch with my own divine nature. But that idea is just one expression of the pride that introduced sin into our world and that continues to trip us up today. Remembering that I am the work of a living, thinking God humbles me and challenges me to think about how I can remain in a position to receive His blessings. It challenges me with questions like, have I done anything in my life to drive His blessings away from me? A question like that leads me right into a consideration of my own sins. And then we have to wrestle with the question, if I've spurned God's blessings, how can I get back into a position to enjoy His blessings? And that, of course, raises the whole subject of salvation, doesn't it? Well, as another old cliche says, there is a God, and you ain't Him. According to Hebrews 11:6, understanding that truth is the first step in pleasing God. That verse says this, without faith it is impossible to please Him, for whoever would draw near to God must believe that He exists, and that He rewards those who seek Him. Well, thanks for listening to the podcast today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and any other episodes that you've had the opportunity to listen to. If you have enjoyed it, would you consider sharing it with someone else who might enjoy it just as well as you have? Thanks again for listening today and for giving me the opportunity to teach you something to the glory of our living and thinking God.